Hi, I'm Josh Ibarra, and this is my Module 14 for EDL 850, our case study over copyright. Dang it. So for my section one, just kind of summing up all this, we're talking about St. Regis, which is a K through 8 school in rural community with about 420 students. Principal is Mr. Sample. He's an outsider, but this is a pretty tight community. And he doesn't really like to rock the boat much, wants to stick with the status quo. He's kind of built a pretty good relationship, realizes that people support him and like him, and he kind of wants to keep it that way. The school has two main fundraisers that they do with parents, and they have decided to use this money that they've been raising from these fundraisers to fund a computer lab. They're not going to build a lab like a whole new building or a new room, but they're going to furnish a current existing room with new computers. Then these computers are going to have software put on them that is basically what the teachers want. So each teacher, excuse me, is going to submit their requests using their own money for resources that they get from the school to buy software. And so they submit these requests, these ideas for software to Mrs. Lynn, who is a school librarian, and then she figures out what programs to purchase based on this. Because the school has a very tight budget. The school will not allocate funds for a computer lab supervisor, so Mrs. Lynn agrees to handle this, and she sets up a schedule for the teachers to use. That way people aren't stacked up on top of each other. After 4 months, the teachers, the schedule's working, but the teachers believe, that if they ask Mrs. Lynn, or they believe that they can get more out of it if they had the software on their classroom computers as well. And so they ask if she can copy the software onto disks, and then they can install it on their computers. Mrs. Lynn does this, realizing this could save the school and the parents a lot of money. So she makes copies of the software, gives it to the teachers. One of the teachers has come from another school, a bigger school, and they had a policy dealing with copyright, so she knows the law pretty well, and she knows this is not a good thing, and so this is kind of where the issue arises, because her and Mrs. Lynn are going to kind of bump heads. So what is going on here? The school is in violation of copyright laws. They are doing this just to try and save money, and to be resourceful. Mrs. Lynn is trying to do this to save money, for the district and everything. She thinks it's not a bad idea. Mrs. Brandon is the one who is the teacher who caught the problem. There's another teacher that they mentioned, Mrs. Williams, who thinks it's a great idea and installs it on her computer. The principal, Mr. Sample, like I said, doesn't like to rock the boat, so he's kind of in this situation kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. But I believe he kind of handles it the way that he should. So synthesizing this whole thing, the school librarian thought that she could save the school and parents money by copying software, but this violates copyright laws. Section 4, people involved: Mr. Sample, Mrs. Lynn. Okay, so the principal and the librarian. Mrs. Williams is the older teacher who's been around for a long time. Like I said, very tight-knit community, very tight-knit school. Mr. Sample and Mrs. Brandon are kind of outsiders here. Mrs. Williams thinks this isn't a bad idea and thinks Mrs. Lynn's doing a great job. Mrs. Brandon is the one, she tries to approach Mrs. Lynn in a very professional manner and just say, hey, I don't think we can do this. I don't want these discs. This is copyright infringement or whatever you want to call it. And she's the one that ends up going to the principal. And then on a bigger scale, St. Regis School District and the stakeholders, because if something happens, it's going to affect them. Where is this taking place? St. Regis School, which is a K through 8 school program, or what's going on here? It's the copying of the computer software, which is dealing with each teacher's curriculum. So that's what's kind of at stake here. Okay, as far as who this could what kind of damages if something were to happen here. It could be damaging the district. By damaging the district, you're going to affect the students, and by damaging the district, you're going to affect the stakeholders. So if they continue to do this and they get caught and get in trouble, that could be up to $150,000 fine and a number of other things, and the district would have to pay for that, which means the stakeholders would have to raise more money to help with that money particular, or help with that particular money, getting it re-raised or whatever, and that's going to affect the students if they have to pay legal fees or a fine. That's taking money out of the school that could be used for education. Okay, so as far as different options, option one was kind of the leave it alone, see what happens type thing. So leave it be and hope nothing happens. Hope that it either Mrs. Lynn does the right thing and stops doing this, or let them distribute it and hope that nothing happens as far as you don't get in trouble. Kind of a risky thing to do. Being in a rural community like that, yeah, more than likely people aren't going to get in trouble for it, but you just never know. If auditors come in and or the word gets out that this is going on, Mrs. Brandon goes and resigns, and people wonder why, and the word gets out that, well, she resigned because she was afraid she was going to get in trouble because of this, blah, 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 then you can be in trouble. Option two, this is the more liberal, like, I guess, in a sense, in my mind, panic mode. You suspend Mrs. Lynn, potentially, you write her up for the whole thing, and you contact the proper authorities, turn the school in, basically to avoid being in bigger trouble. This, I think, is a little overboard. I don't think it needs to get to that. Option three, you don't make a big deal about it, but you do make a big deal about it. So you keep everything calm and make sure everyone is aware of the issue. Explain it, explain the copyright laws and what could happen to the school, and say this is not what we want, and come up with solutions to fix the issue. Make it to where it doesn't seem like anybody's really in trouble. Mrs. Lynn's not trying to hurt the school; she's trying to help it. So you go with that, and just need to understand the severity of the situation. So looking at these now, the no action. If you take no action, the school could get into big trouble and have to, pay a considerable amount of money in fines or legal fees, and potentially staff members could lose jobs. So, Mrs. Lynn, the principal, any teachers who are knowingly doing this could get suspended or lose jobs, or, I think that's a little drastic, but, potentially that's a possibility. Option two, you make a big deal out of a bigger deal out of it than it really is. You make a mountain out of a molehill here type situation, which will create friction amongst the stakeholders, the staff. Probably, the staff's not going to trust the principal as much anymore. The stakeholders are going to be, wonder why we're not trying to save money, such and such, yada yada. Option three, we take care of the issue and everyone is on the same page. So you still take care of the issue, but you do it in a manner that isn't as over the top, and you make sure people realize that, yes, we understand you're trying to help, but by trying to help, you're breaking the law, and that could end up hurting us in the long run. What's the best option? Option three. Handle it within is not a huge issue. Get rid of the copied disc and create a policy to deal with this type of situation. That's kind of a summary. I'll go over kind of the steps in a second. So how I would do this, and I kind of left some stuff out of here, not purposely, but I would reach out to the superintendent just to make him aware of the situation, discuss coming up with a policy for this type of situation to present to the school board. That way in the future we know how to handle this, and there's no question, that if this happens in the future, you say, well, here's the policy. I then, as the building administrator, if I was Mr. Sample, I would email my staff and have a staff meeting. Something quick in the morning or whatever. Make sure they're all aware of the situation, the copyright law, and what the severity of it is. Make sure they would return the disc and get rid of it off their computers, and then go from there. And then come up with, this is what I left out, maybe try and brainstorm ideas on how to come up with the money to come up with that software. if we need to do another fundraiser, if we need to, talk to the school board, whatever the case is, figure out, hey, how can we do this without breaking the law? Step 3, I would tell the teachers continue utilizing the computer lab and to use the schedule that was provided by the librarian until we can come up with that extra software to put in their classroom. Apparently, the lab was working fine. They had the resources there. They had the schedule. Yes, it may not be as convenient, but it's there. Let's utilize it, and we can avoid being in trouble. Like I said, we don't make a big deal out of it. You applaud Mrs. Lynn in public for trying to be resourceful, but maybe pull her aside and say, hey, if somebody brings up something like this, you need to understand the severity of it. And this isn't them trying to be critical of you. This is them trying to protect our students and our stakeholders in our school district to keep them out of bigger trouble. So yes, you may be saving us money, or it may seem like you're saving us money, but if something were to happen, you're going to end up costing us a lot of money, and it could cost you your job or whatever. So, and she may not agree with that, or she may think that the likelihood of that is very slim, but it is a possibility. And we don't want to be breaking the law just to save a few pennies, which I know would be more than that, maybe a few $1,000 or whatever. We want to make sure we're following the laws and that our students are the ones that we're looking after, and not just saving money for the school district. If we need to spend more money for our students, then we need to figure out how we need to do that, not break laws to save money. So I hope this works. This has been a heck of a deal for me with our internet. I think somebody cut a fiber in town. It's been down for a while, and just computer issues the last 2 days. So anyway, enjoy the class. Thank you.